Hi, my name is Molly Cooley from Windswept Free Glass Art, and today we are going to make an ocean moon bead. These are the supplies you're going to need, so let's get started. I start with dark ivory. Dark ivory is my favorite to do for the sand, and I put about a little bit larger than a spacer bead on my mandrel. I marver it, kind of putting a small angle at the base. What I'm doing is starting to shape it. Next I'm going to use copper green. Copper green creates really cool effects as well when it's boiled onto the ivory. It webs and black comes out. I'm not sure why I don't like plain sand. I rarely ever do plain sand. So here's what the stringer of copper green looks like, and now we're boiling. And I'm not sure if you can see this, but it's starting to web. The more you boil it, the more it'll web. And then we're going to reheat. Next, we're going to grab our white. White is the base of any ocean bead of mine underneath the water, because it almost makes any color you put on top of it glow from underneath. Sort of does what Mother Nature does in real life. And then we're going to superheat that, marver it down, and we're just shaping as we go. Next, I'm going to grab the lightest color I have chosen for my water. This goes right next to the ivory and creates what looks like the shoreline, as the lightest color is a lot of times at the shoreline. I'm going to heat that in and then grab my second color. And you can use anywhere from 1 to 5. You can do whatever you want. This is just your imagination and whatever you want to do as far as the water goes. So we're going to layer that and wind it right on top of the other color. And then fire cut it. Keep winding the bead and making sure you reheat that along the way. And then we're going to add our third color and do the same. Wind it on top of that second color. There's no right or wrong here. Water does all kinds of cool stuff, and every time it's different. So we're going to heat that together, and I would like you to notice the rim around the white of the color. That's important because we are going to fill that in with black, and what that does is make it look more realistic, as if the waves were coming up over the skyline. It shows up a lot more when you use enamels, but we'll get to that in a different video. So, showing you once again the rim. Get a nice ball of black and just push it down in, pull it around. Don't worry if you don't get enough black your first time. You can just go back, get another gather, and do it again until you've filled in all the way around that edge. And you got to be careful to really push that black down in there pretty good, or you'll get an air bubble, and that will be really hard to deal with after the fact. So just continue to add the black until you've covered all the white. Reheat it very well, and then we're going to marver that down together. Like so. And next we're going to keep adding black and reshaping over and over until we get about the right amount of glass we're going to need. Now, until about 2 years ago, I used mashers for all of my beads. I since then have found the 1.25 Zuzi press round, and that's what I'm going to be using today, and I'm going to show you how to use that. But if you only have mashers, that's absolutely fine too. Really, you can turn into any shape. I've made hearts with this. But what you're going to want for the Zuzi press is to get it into as much of a barrel shape as you can. And don't worry if you don't get enough glass on it, because I'm going to show you how to add more glass. You definitely would rather have too little than too much. So when I think I've got enough, I reheat it, I set it down into my Zuzi mold to kind of gauge how much glass I actually need, or if I'm close. I think I'm going to need a little more black. And I just keep reheating the bead. You have to make sure it stays nice and hot throughout this entire process. I'm going to wind a little more black. And by the way, I love Hades black. It's a Creationist messy color. It does amazing things when you start to use silver foil and those kinds of things on your bead or silvered glass. So I'm going to set it down and measure. Kind of looks like I still need a little bit more black. Going to add a little bit more to that. Reheat it really well. And then we're going to set it down in the press, measure up the holes, and press down. As you will see, it has chill marks from the tool, so we're going to want to melt those out. And it looks like I don't quite have enough glass at the top. It isn't perfectly round, so I'm just going to add some more black to the upper middle part of my bead. If I try to add it to the top, I might misshape it, and that would ruin the bead. So I'm going to add it to the middle, heat it in really well, and then repress. It's looking a lot better. So we're going to work out our chill marks again. We do this quite a lot. Reheat, remold. That way it gets perfect. Next, we're going to grab our white. And it's very important when you start to make sure that your white rod and your black rod are the same size. You'll see when we do the crescent moon how important that is and why. So I start by putting a white dot on the bead, fire cut, heat it in really well, and then I'm going to wait a couple of seconds before I press it down onto the marber. This is the way you get a perfectly round moon. If you try to press it down too fast on the marber, it's going to get a sloppy moon, and you'll see that quite a bit because people aren't patient and don't let it create a skin. Same thing on the other side. And I like to put a crescent moon and a full moon on either side of my beads, so when it flips, you get something different. And then I choose between the two full moons. The one that's more perfect stays a full moon, and the other gets made into the crescent. So we're going to heat our black rod and basically put a black moon next to the white one. Heat it in super well. Give it a couple seconds and then press, and that creates your crescent moon. Next, we're going to reheat the bead. And then press down again. You want to keep pressing because you want to make sure that it holds its shape. If you do this after every step, you're going to have a perfectly shaped round bead. So let's reheat. And we're going to start to add our stars to the bead. We have a very, very fine white stringer. You very carefully just heat the tip of the white and put it down onto the black. Do as many stars as you want. Heat them in after a few seconds. Go back and look if there's anywhere else you would like to have a star. Add a few more on if you'd like. You know, you could even use yellow for these stars. I use silver foil for my stars most of the time. And then you do the other side, and there's your bead. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you will look for more of my video tutorials.